University, and I work in the Faculty of Accounting. My paper is on the importance of student self-assessment and peer assessment in higher education. We want to see whether the students, when they assess themselves or they assess other students' work, can actually help them to prepare when they are employed. So that's what I'm going to deliberate with you. Before I go on, like one of the speakers says, that it is also important to deliberate about where you come from and where you work. So I'm just going to give you a brief background of Botho University. Botho University is a tertiary registered institution, and it's got 3 campuses, that is Maun, Francistown, and Gaborone. And I'm also based in Gaborone, in Dimawe. Enrollment, we have got over 5,000 students, and staff, there are plus or minus 400. Programs of study, we have the Faculty of Accounting and Finance, Business, Faculty of Education and Continuing Studies, and Computing. So that's the background of the university. Now, before I go on to my presentation, I just want to give you a small background of what is student self-assessment and peer assessment. It is a situation where students, they actually assess or mark their own work. But before we go ahead, in my paper, I'm saying they are marking their own work, but which is not for the final mark. And I said in my paper or my proposal that other research can also be taken in terms of should we put final marks for students who assess themselves or peer themselves. So I think that's food for thought for us to see whether we can incorporate that. Now let's go back to the today's deliberations. The reason why I chose this topic is that we can prepare students by them assessing their own work. We can prepare, you see on the other next slides, why does it help for students to assess their work or other peers' work when they go out there. It also prepares them to be competitive, because employers, they want students or employees who have got skills, because they don't want to waste much of their time training them. Like my background, like what I said, I'm also an accountant. When I was an accountant, I wouldn't want somebody whom I spent much time to train. I would need someone who would, a self-starter. That's the term that we normally use on the job market. And it was also perceived as an added advantage to an employer to get employees who have gone through peer and self-assessment of their work. We'll see when we continue. There are some people who have also carried this same research. They are Botho and Machera. They also agreed that when students, they assess their own work or other colleagues' work, they actually acquire or enhance their skills. So these are like the skills that we want to train them from the classroom, then we transfer those skills when they are now employed, or they may use now those skills that they have got when they were in class. Now, another advantage is that the students, when they are assessing other students' work or their work, they will be actually learning by doing. So I'm assessing someone's work, and at the same time, I'm actually learning. So it is what we call learning by doing approach, which is quite an encouraged approach in higher education. This phenomenon, it prepares students to have various tasks, and hence we are actually preparing them at an early stage. The problem statement. What was the problem statement when I was trying to address this? I was saying, is there any connection between a student and a lecturer? Like we had in other presentations that you must be friendly, but when you are saying friendly, I think maybe the other presenter didn't actually went deeper into this. We are not saying being friendly to students is that the students should relax, they should climb on the desk and so forth. But we are saying there must be a good relationship between the lecturer and the student. And this is what we want to try to do. Does self-assessment enhance opportunities for access to employment if they do this? Do these self-assessment and peer assessment improve what we call self-directing? Self-directing, you will see on the next slide that the student, they will be able to do their own work on their own. And this is what we should actually impart to students. And it also encourage collaboration. When she's marking my work or his work, there is collaboration, there is communication, there is interaction, and sharing of ideas. And then the purpose, this is one of the class that I had to, when I was conducting, it is also one of my classes. I wanted to identify whether the students in my department, like I said, I teach in accounting, in AAT, are they able to assess other students' work? And if they do that, and I compare with my own assessment, are there going to be any variations? If there are no any variations, then I can actually conclude that it is important to give students self-assessment and peer assessment. So I carried this, I think it's on the other slide that I have. The objective is to see whether also the academic, they actually do this self and peer assessment. And if they have, how honest those people who do the peer, if you are peer, if it's yours, how honest are you in doing that? Am I honest to give myself a proper grade? Or I'm going to give a grade that is biased? How do students see the benefits for self-assessment? And is there any relationship between peer assessment and employment? And then the last one, like I said, are we actually transferring skills if we do that in our classrooms? Do we transfer skills if we introduce this as an intervention? Okay, the scope, I only carried a sort of a pilot on my 3 batches that I'm teaching, which is 3 classes, which translate to 90 students based in Gaborone. And it took over 3 months to do that, and doing some tests and so forth, which I have here. Now, my literature, I dwell it on the model from Delhi and McDonald. I think as educators, some of these we are aware of them. The models talks about how a professional develops from a novice point of view up to when you are an expert. How do we develop? So in my paper, I'm mostly interested on the novice point of view. What happens is, like in academic, we try to prepare our students so that they go there and become novice. But I'm saying, let them become novice in the classroom so that when they go, they start on the advanced beginner. I'll just take you through how it works, this model that I've used in teaching. I'm giving an example of an accountant. I'm an accountant by background, and I'm also teaching accountants. So it is very ideal to talk about an accountant because I know them. So now, when you are a novice, at a novice level, the students have got just little experience. And the students is relying on what? On rules and regulations. When we have taught them how to self-assess and peer assess, they will be able to assess the rules that we give them when they are now employed. Do you know the rules that are there? They will be able to do that without much time being wasted in supervision. And on advanced beginner, that person now who's a clerk or a bookkeeper will develop now into an assistant accountant. Now they can cope with the reality. They can actually assess the reality that is there and the workplace there when we are preparing them at this level. So then they also develop onto being an accountant. They're now they're now organized. They can all plan activities. And when they are finance managers, I think I exited the industry at a finance manager's level. You are now seeing the complex picture. So this is like what we are telling them. Then when they develop to become a financial director, they can see the change management, things that can come as changes in an organization. So this is the one of the model that I use in my literature review, together with the approaches in teaching that most of us were aware of them. I borrowed from Noels, who's the guru in education, the pedagogy approach, where we are saying students, like right now, audience, they are on a passive approach. You're just listening. And we need to change that into the new approach, or a modern approach, which is andragogy, where we're saying students shouldn't just listen. They must, a lecturer or a teacher is a facilitator. He takes learning, he teaches people so that learning can take place. I just give you instruction, then learning can take place. Or I just trigger you, then everything will then take place. So I'm saying we need to move on to the andragogy rather than the pedagogy. So that's the other approach that I took when I was taking my literature review. You see, when I'm now linking andragogy, I'm saying students are going to be given questionnaires. When they are answering questionnaires, I just train them, but I mustn't influence them on answering the questionnaires. So they must do it on their own. So what interviews, when I'm interviewing, they shouldn't be biased. And then the other methodology that I used was participatory or experimentary. They were actually doing it and doing it together and get the results together. And then, like I said, I targeted 90 students in my in my area of responsibility. Okay? Or just, yeah, I'm almost about to finish. Thank you. The results, only on this pilot that I did, 92% of the students, the results showed that they become very responsible when they do peer and self-assessment. And they were so accountable. And it shows also that they were learning by doing. So if you give them to do, rather than yourself as a teacher to mark 90 scripts, if you give them to do that for you, not for you as such. Here the point is, I'm not saying teachers, they should remove their load. They should give the load to the student. No, that's not the concept here. But we are saying the students will be actually learning by doing, and they become responsible. And the results also reflected that they become more competitive. As you see on the next slides, what sort of assessment that they will do if they are accountants. The results also reflect 96% of the respondents that there was a good relationship between the lecturer and the students. And my results that I have marked and their results, the variances were very minimal. So it means the students can actually mark their own work. But I'm not sending a message to lecturers here that, please, Robert said, go and give the student to mark. No. Finally, the results indicated that 90% of peer and self-assessment enhances students' learning. So when they are doing that, they will see other people's errors, they see other people's mistakes, and they can actually incorporate that in their learning. Then, recommendation for this to be successful now, since it was just a small, quick survey, there is an amount of training which is needed. You need to train the students how to mark, how to standardize the paper, or whatever the task it is. And then the students, they need to understand the benefits for them to peer assess or self-assess. They mustn't understand, they mustn't take it for that overloading the teacher's work. No. So it is important to train them, to show them what are the benefits that they will get. Then you also train them how to answer questionnaires. I think I talked about that. And the actual marking itself, they need training to do that. So that's why it took us 3 months to do this. Then, the last part also says that the students agreed that there were benefits. They started to see benefits, but if you check, I did a lot of trials, and the students were refusing, because they were saying that I want to give them my work, my load. So, until they understood the benefits, then they accepted. So I'm actually preparing them to be responsible when they go out there. And then we'll find that their performance appraisal, one of them, they can become manager or supervisors. They will be able to assess performance appraisal for their subordinates, or performance appraisal for their peer. This is what is happening if you use 360 degrees. 360 degrees says that customers, they need to assess you, your peers, your supervisor, your colleagues, and so forth. So they'll be able to do that. Business assessments, proposals, they'll be able to assess them. They're able to assess risk since they are accountants, and to review, which is the most important or the key as accountants, to review the financial statements or the reports. Okay? The conclusion. The result of this study reflects that self-assessment and peer assessment prepares students. So my message to everyone, or to all of us, is that let's prepare the students from the onset, from the classroom, so that when they go out there, they will have acquired skills. And then they will be able to be employed locally, because we should start with the local. Charity begins at home. You shouldn't start to say, I want to be employed in UK, when you actually fail to get employment here. What is making you to not get employment here, that you think you can be competitive there? Let them get local. When they get that, or even if they get global, if they happen to be fortunate, that is good. But we have equipped them with the right skills. Finally, this intervention enhances student skills, and it is vital to prospective employers. Even to us here, if they are also if those students, some students, they can actually absorb within the system. If they become teachers, they will be able also to assess students' work. We'll have trained them on how to do that. I think my time is not on my side, but in a nutshell, that's what this paper is all about.